going to interface with the system. Then look at the events, what triggers this thing to start off and move, and then how do the actors initiate those events? How do they trigger? Identify your primary use cases first. Your mainline flow is first. Then look at any possible variations on that and any exceptions. Create all your relationships and do your documentation. Don't forget to do the documentation. It matters. Guidelines, fewer is better. Okay, as a general rule, when you start getting very complex in your use case diagrams, you don't have, it's a sign that you probably don't have a full transaction in each use case. You divided it up too far. They give a guideline that 20 use cases is a large system and 50 would be extremely large. As a general rule, you're going to be probably less than 10 for what we're playing with. Possibly even less than 5, but you have to look at how you break up your transactions and your functionality. You can nest use cases. I've never seen it done, but it is theoretically possible. It comes into play especially when you're talking about the extends and includes. Each of those use cases can be its own system with its own actors and its own use cases inside of it. They're structured, okay? They tell a lot, and done properly, they are very valuable. But even when they're done loosely, informally, they're extremely valuable from the standpoint of a communication tool. They're easy to understand. People can see them. They can follow what you're doing when you're looking at them. Once again, I've got a use case one-pager that I put together, and I'll email it out like I did the others. It talks about these things. Okay, so you've got your scenario and the things that are included. You've got the diagram and the different pieces of it. You can, in this case, have parent-children relationships, just like you do in the other diagrams. And this, again, would be where one might be in another. Where you get into the extended and the included is generally a subroutine or a completely separate system that you're linking into. Again, you're probably not going to get into that, but know that it's there. And when you start seeing dotted arrows, know that something else is going on. Any questions on use cases? They're relatively simple, but not as easy to draw as they sound. Yeah?
In this assignment it says lead by use case diagram between bank customer and a bank teller. So bank teller might be an ATM or a customer representative, or might be a person in the bank.
Those are the things that you have to determine for your system. Okay?
So it might be any one of those.
I'm not going to answer the question for you, but it's potential given your description. That's where the use case scenario comes into play, because you're describing the actors, you're describing what they do, how they do it, and why they do it, and why you've chosen to make that an actor rather than a use case. Okay? In a lot of cases, now people as a general rule aren't a use case, but a lot of times something like an ATM or another system, there's a choice that goes into whether it's an actor or an individual use case. So you have to think through the logic and then describe that logic. And as a general rule, if you describe the logic and it makes good sense, it's right. Okay? But if you don't describe the logic and explain how you got there, it's going to lose people. Okay? Got it? Okay. Moving on then to the next version of modeling. And this one is the one that most of us think of when we think of a model, a process model. This is BPML. It is your basic process flow, or it looks like anyway, your process flow. So let's do a little review here. What's a model? Okay.
Symbolic representation of the system.
Okay. It's a picture. Yes, it's a symbolic representation of something. It might not be a system. It might be data. It might be a process. It might be an information flow. But it's a symbolic representation, a visual.